In the oppressive silence of a dimly lit, hyper-modern living room, rain lashes against the floor-to-ceiling windows as Reed Dalton sneers at Vanessa, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. He brutally dismisses her as a remnant of his past, mocking her scent of discount detergent and thrifty habits that no longer fit his multi-million-dollar status, declaring that he now requires a queen, not a maid. As he arrogantly demands she sign the divorce papers to spare her dignity, Vanessa remains unnervingly calm. When she finally raises her eyes, they are void of sadness and terrifyingly cold as she delivers a chilling warning that he might just get exactly what he asked for. The penthouse apartment in downtown Seattle was a testament to Reed Dalton's rapid ascent. It was glass, chrome, and leather, cold, expensive, and utterly devoid of soul. It was the kind of place people bought to prove they had arrived, even if they had no idea where they were going. Reed adjusted the cuffs of his bespoke Italian suit, catching his reflection in the hallway mirror. He looked the part. 32, jawline sharp enough to cut glass, eyes bright with the hunger of a man who had tasted power and wanted the whole feast. He was the VP of operations for Spencer Dynamics, and if the merger with the Whitmore Group went through, he would be CEO within the year. He walked into the living room, the heels of his polished Oxfords clicking sharply on the marble floors. Vanessa Maxwell was on her knees, scrubbing a non-existent spot on the Persian rug. She wore a faded grey cardigan and jeans that had seen better days. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, secured with a cheap plastic clip. To anyone looking in, she was the help. To Reed, she was an anchor, heavy, rusting, and dragging him down to the ocean floor of mediocrity. "Stop it," Reed snapped, tossing his briefcase onto the white leather sofa. "We have a housekeeper, Vanessa. Why do you insist on acting like a peasant?" Vanessa sat back on her heels, wiping her hands on a rag. Her face was plain, devoid of the makeup Isabella Whitmore wore. Isabella, with her diamond-studded ears and lips painted the color of sin. Isabella, who whispered promises of power and legacy into Reed's ear, while Vanessa whispered about grocery budgets and leaking faucets. "The housekeeper missed a spot," Vanessa said softly. Her voice was melodious, a stark contrast to the harsh surroundings, but Reed had stopped listening to the music of it years ago. "And you know I like taking care of our home, Reed. It keeps me grounded." "Grounded?" Reed let out a sharp, cruel laugh. "You're not grounded, Vanessa. You're buried. You're buried in a life that's too small for me. Look at this." He pulled a manila envelope from his inside pocket and threw it onto the coffee table. It landed with a heavy slap, sliding across the surface until it hit the edge of the rug she had just cleaned. Vanessa didn't flinch. She didn't even look surprised. She simply stared at the envelope, her expression unreadable. "What is this?" she asked, though she already knew. "My freedom," Reed said, loosening his tie, "and a generous settlement for you. More than you deserve, considering you brought nothing into this marriage but debt and a sad backstory." Vanessa slowly stood up. She wasn't tall, but in that moment her posture shifted. Her spine straightened with an elegance that seemed out of place for a woman in a faded cardigan. "Is this because of Isabella?" Vanessa asked. Reed sneered at the name. "Don't say her name. You don't get to speak about her. Isabella Whitmore is a goddess. She understands the world I live in. She's the daughter of Wren Whitmore, Vanessa. Do you know what that means? It means when I walk into a room with her, people bow. When I walk in with you, they ask for a drink refill." He stepped closer, looming over her. "I need a partner who elevates me, someone who knows how to navigate a gala, not just a grocery aisle. You're a sweet girl, Vanessa, but let's be honest. You're simple. You're poor, in spirit, not just in your bank account. Vanessa walked over to the table and picked up the envelope. Her hands were steady. Simple, she repeated, tasting the word. You think I'm simple because I choose not to flaunt wealth I don't need? You don't have wealth to flaunt, Reed shouted, his patience snapping. I pay for everything. The clothes on your back, the food in your stomach. I saved you, Vanessa. I pulled you out of that studio apartment and gave you a life. You gave me a cage, she corrected quietly, and you filled it with things I never asked for. And now I'm opening the door, Reed countered. Sign the papers. Philip Oakley drew them up. He's the best shark in the city, so don't bother getting a lawyer. You won't win. Take the alimony, buy a nice little house in the suburbs, and find a mechanic who likes pot roast. That's your level. Vanessa looked at him for a long moment. There was a flicker of something in her eyes. Not anger, not sadness, but pity. It infuriated Reed. I'll read them, she said. You have until tomorrow morning, Reed demanded, turning toward the bedroom to pack a bag. I'm staying at the Four Seasons tonight. Isabella is hosting a charity auction, and I need to be seen with someone who actually belongs there. He paused at the doorway, looking back at his wife of 5 years. Don't make this hard, Vanessa. For once in your life, do the smart thing. Vanessa watched him leave. The moment the heavy front door clicked shut, the poor housewife facade didn't drop, but the atmosphere around her shifted. The air grew heavy. She pulled a burner phone from beneath the cushion of the sofa. She dialed a number that wasn't stored in the contacts. It's done, she said into the receiver, her voice crisp, authoritative, and stripped of the softness she used with Reed. He's initiated the separation. Tell Nicholas to prepare the jet, and tell grandfather that the experiment is over. Reed Dalton has failed the test. The next morning, the offices of Spencer Dynamics were buzzing. The impending merger with Whitmore Group was the only topic of conversation, and Reed Dalton was the man of the hour. He walked through the glass doors, greeting his subordinates with a curt nod. He felt lighter today. The weight of Vanessa's mediocrity was lifting. Reed! Uriah Spencer, the CEO, waved him into his office. Uriah was a man of 60, built like a linebacker, with a reputation for being ruthless, but fair. He had always liked Reed's drive, though he often questioned his methods. Uriah, Reed said, taking a seat. How are the numbers looking? Solid, Uriah grunted, chewing on an unlit cigar. But Ren Whitmore is playing hardball. He wants to ensure the leadership transition is stable before he signs over the distribution rights. He's old school, Reed. Family values. Trust. Reed smiled confidently. I'm meeting Isabella for lunch. I'll smooth it over. Ren loves me. Uriah raised an eyebrow. Does he? Or does he love that you're doing his daughter? Be careful, son. Mixing business with the Whitmores is like swimming with sharks. They smell blood in the water from miles away. I can handle Isabella, Reed said, dismissing the warning. She needs me as much as I need her. She wants to run the company, but her father won't let a woman take the helm without a strong husband. I'm the key, Uriah. And your wife? Uriah asked, his voice dropping. Vanessa? Sweet girl. Brought cookies to the Christmas party last year. Reed waved a hand dismissively. We're separating. Amicably. We grew apart. It happens. Uriah looked at him for a long moment, a shadow crossing his face. Careful what you throw away, Reed. Sometimes the packaging doesn't match the product. Reed ignored the advice. He left the office and headed to Le Ciel, the most exclusive French restaurant in the city, to meet Isabella. Isabella Whitmore was waiting for him at a corner table. She was stunning in a predatory way. Sharp features, immaculate makeup, and a red dress that cost more than Vanessa's entire wardrobe. Darling, she purred as he sat down, extending a hand for him to kiss. Did you do it? It's in motion, Reed said, taking a sip of the vintage Pinot Noir she had already ordered. She has the papers. I expect them signed by tonight. Isabella laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. Finally. I was getting tired of hiding you. Daddy is throwing the engagement gala next Saturday. He expects you to be a free man by then. Next Saturday? Reed hesitated. That's fast. That's business, Reed, Isabella snapped, her eyes flashing. Wren wants to announce the merger and our engagement simultaneously. It stabilizes the stock. Unless you're having second thoughts about your little maid. No, Reed said quickly. No second thoughts. Vanessa is the past. You are the future. Meanwhile, across the city, Vanessa sat in a small coffee shop. She wasn't wearing the faded cardigan today. She wore a tailored black blazer and dark sunglasses. Across from her sat Haley Thorne, her oldest friend in Seattle, and the only one who knew a fraction of the truth. He actually served you? Haley asked, stirring her latte aggressively. The audacity. After you secretly paid off his student loans? After you used your connections to get him that interview at Spencer Dynamics? He doesn't know about any of that, Vanessa said calmly. He thinks his genius got him the interview and a banking error cleared his loans. He's an idiot, Haley hissed. So what now? Do we burn him down? Please tell me we burn him down. Not yet, Vanessa said, taking a delicate sip of her tea. He needs to sign the divorce decree. I need legal severance. If he finds out who I am before the divorce is final, he'll fight for half of everything. And half of my estate would destabilize a small European economy. Haley grinned wicked. True, the Duchess of... Shh, Vanessa cut her off. Not here. Right. So he thinks he's trading up to the Whitmores? He does, Vanessa nodded. He doesn't realize that the Whitmores are tenants. They lease their land. They lease their brand rights. From you, Haley whispered, gleeful. From the Crown Estate, Vanessa corrected, which, effectively, is me. Wren Whitmore has been begging for a lease renewal for months. I've been holding it up because I wanted to see if Reed would choose integrity over ambition. And he chose the mistress, Vanessa said, her voice devoid of emotion. So now he gets neither. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Reed. Meet at Philip Oakley's office, 4 p.m. Don't be late. Vanessa stood up, smoothing her blazer. Showtime. The law offices of Philip Oakley were designed to intimidate. Dark mahogany paneling, leather chairs that swallowed you whole, and a view of the city that made everyone on the street look like ants. Reed sat next to Isabella, his hand resting possessively on her knee. Isabella shouldn't have been there. It was highly irregular for the mistress to attend the divorce signing, but Reed wanted to drive the point home. He wanted Vanessa to see what she was losing and what he was gaining. Philip Oakley, a man with a smile like a used car salesman, slid the documents across the massive desk. Standard separation agreement, Oakley said. Reed is being very generous, Mrs. Dalton. He's offering you the sedan and $20,000 in cash, enough to start over. Vanessa sat alone on her side of the table. She hadn't touched the water they offered. She picked up the pen. Isabella, Vanessa said, acknowledging the other woman for the first time. I see you're wearing the Cartier bracelet Reed bought last month. It was charged to our joint account. Isabella smirked, twisting the diamonds on her wrist. Consider it a severance tax, honey. Reed likes to spoil women who appreciate him. And I suppose you appreciate his potential CEO title more than the man himself? Vanessa asked. I appreciate that he's a winner, Isabella shot back. Unlike some, Reed checked his watch. "Just sign it, Vanessa. I have a meeting with your landlord. I mean, Wren Whitmore, in an hour." Vanessa flipped to the last page. She didn't read the terms. She didn't care about the $20,000. "Read," she said, pausing with the pen hovering over the paper. "I'm going to give you one last chance. Not to stay married, that ship has sailed, but a chance to be decent. Walk away from Isabella. Walk away from this obsession with status. We can divorce, but do it with dignity. Don't humiliate yourself." Reed laughed, a harsh barking sound. "You're giving me a chance? Vanessa, look around you. I have the lawyer, the money, and the girl. You have a bus pass. Sign the damn paper." Vanessa met his eyes. She saw the rot there, the absolute moral decay. "Very well," she whispered. She signed her name, Vanessa Maxwell. She left off the Dalton. "Done," Oakley said, snatching the papers away as if afraid she might eat them. "Congratulations. You are legally separated. The decree will be finalized in 48 hours. "Get out of my city, Vanessa," Reed said, standing up and buttoning his jacket. "Go back to whatever trailer park you crawled out of." Vanessa stood up. She picked up her simple clutch. "I'm not leaving the city, Reed. I have business to attend to." "You? Business?" Isabella cackled. "Cleaning toilets at the mall?" Vanessa ignored her. She walked to the door, but before she could open it, it swung inward. Two men in dark suits, wearing earpieces, stepped into the room. They didn't look like security guards. They looked like military operatives. Behind them walked a man who sucked the oxygen out of the room. He was tall, with silver-streaked hair, and a suit that made Reed's Italian tailoring look like a costume. He carried a silver-handled cane, though he didn't seem to need it. This was Nicholas Kingsley, the royal advisor, the man who whispered in the ears of kings and queens. Reed frowned. "Who the hell are you? You can't just barge in here. This is a private meeting." Nicholas Kingsley didn't even look at Reed. He walked past him, past Isabella, and stopped directly in front of Vanessa. To Reed's absolute shock, the imposing man bowed. It wasn't a polite nod. It was a deep, formal bow from the waist. "Your Highness," Nicholas said, his voice deep and resonant, "the car is waiting. The jet is fueled for the trip to the capital, but we can delay if you wish to visit the local estate first." Reed blinked. "Highness, what is this? A prank?" Vanessa looked at Nicholas, then back at Reed. Her demeanor changed instantly. The shoulders went back, the chin lifted, and an aura of icy authority descended upon her. "No prank, Reed," Vanessa said. "Nicholas, please inform Mr. Oakley that his services will not be required for the Whitmore merger. I believe his firm represents a conflict of interest." "Conflict of interest?" Oakley sputtered. "Who are you?" "I am the conflict," Vanessa said coolly. She turned to Reed. "You wanted a queen, Reed. You just didn't realize you were already married to a princess." "Vanessa, stop it," Reed stammered, his face flushing red. "You're embarrassing yourself. You're delusional. Who is this actor?" "Nicholas," Vanessa said. "Show them." Nicholas reached into his jacket and produced a heavy, gold-embossed envelope. He placed it on the desk. It bore a crest, a lion and a hawk intertwined. Isabella gasped. She recognized that crest. It was on every bottle of wine her father sold. It was on the deed to their family estate. It was the royal seal of the House of Maxwell Windsor. "That's impossible," Isabella whispered, her face draining of color. "We shall see you at the gala, Reed," Vanessa said, walking toward the door. The bodyguards parted like the Red Sea. "I believe I'm the guest of honor." She swept out of the room, Nicholas trailing behind her. Reed stood in the silence of the office, the ink on his divorce papers still wet, staring at the closed door. She's lying, Reed muttered, though a cold knot of dread was forming in his stomach. She has to be lying. Isabella didn't answer. She was staring at the gold envelope, her hands trembling. "Reed," Isabella whispered, "if that seal is real, you didn't just divorce your wife. You just declared war on the crown." Silence hung heavy in the back of the Maybach as it sped away from Philip Oakley's office. The rain had stopped, leaving the Seattle streets slick and reflecting the neon lights of the city Reed Dalton believed he owned. Reed stared out the window, his jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached. The image of Nicholas Kingsley bowing to Vanessa, his Vanessa, the woman who darned his socks and clipped coupons, wouldn't leave his mind. "It's a con," Reed said suddenly, breaking the silence. He turned to Isabella, his eyes wild with a desperate need for validation. "Think about it, Issa. She's desperate. I just cut her off. She hired some out-of-work actor to play a butler, printed a fake crest, and staged a scene to scare us. It's pathetic, really." Isabella Whitmore was scrolling frantically on her phone, her complexion pale. "Reed, that wasn't just a crest. That was the seal of the Duchy of Valoria. My father has a bottle of 1945 brandy with that exact seal in his vault. He says the family that owns the land we operate on, the Maxwells, are practically ghosts. No one sees them. They just collect." "Exactly," Reed seized on this. "Ghosts. No one sees them. So Vanessa probably Googled the crest, found a high-res image, and printed it. She's messing with your head, because she knows you're superstitious about the business." He reached over and took her hand, his grip firm. "She's a nobody, Isa. I lived with her for 5 years. I saw her cry over a broken blender. I saw her panic when the electric bill was too high. Do royals worry about utility bills? Do princesses scrub their own floors?" Isabella looked at him, the fear in her eyes slowly being replaced by the arrogance she wore like armor. Reed's logic was sound. It made sense. The alternative, that she had just stolen the husband of a royal duchess, was too terrifying to contemplate. "You're right," Isabella breathed, letting out a shaky laugh. "God, she's good. I almost bought it. The highness bit. Classic overcompensation." "She's trying to ruin our week," Reed said, his voice regaining its usual swagger. "She wants us to be looking over our shoulders at the gala instead of celebrating. We're not going to give her the satisfaction." Reed pulled out his phone and dialed Philip Oakley. "Philip," Reed barked, "ignore everything that just happened. Vanessa is pulling a stunt. Finalize the papers and send a cease and desist to her advisor for impersonation. I want her crushed." He hung up and looked at Isabella. "Done. Now let's focus on Saturday. Who's covering the gala?" "We have the Seattle Times, Vogue Living, and—" Isabella wrinkled her nose. "Daddy insisted we invite Jackson Wilder." Reed frowned. "The YouTube guy, the one who exposes fake billionaires? He has 20 million subscribers, Reed. Daddy thinks if Jackson live streams the merger announcement, our stock will jump 10 points overnight. He's annoying, but he reaches the demographic we need for the new tech division." "Fine." Reed smoothed his tie. "Let him come. Let him film. I want the world to see me take the CEO chair. And if Vanessa tries to crash it, well, security will treat her like the trespasser she is." For the next 3 days, Reed threw himself into work. He ignored the gnawing pit in his stomach. He ignored the fact that when he tried to access the joint bank account to transfer Vanessa her settlement, the account was frozen. Bank error, he told himself. Just another glitch. He didn't notice that the office was quieter than usual. He didn't notice Uriah Spencer watching him from his glass office with a look of profound disappointment. Reed only saw the summit, and he was sprinting toward it, blind to the avalanche gathering above his head. The Whitmore estate was a sprawling architectural marvel perched on the cliffs overlooking the Puget Sound. For the engagement and merger gala, it had been transformed into a palace of light. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ancient oaks in the garden, and a fleet of valet drivers parked a parade of Ferraris, Bentleys, and Rolls-Royces. Reed adjusted his tuxedo in the mirror of the guest suite. It was a Tom Ford custom, midnight blue. He looked every inch the corporate titan. Tonight, his divorce would be finalized in the court of public opinion, and his engagement to the heiress of the Whitmore empire would be crowned. He walked out onto the terrace where the party was in full swing. The air smelled of expensive perfume, champagne, and ocean salt. "There he is!" Wren Whitmore boomed. Wren was a large man, red-faced and boisterous, but his eyes darted around nervously. He held a crystal tumbler of scotch that looked tiny in his fist. "Wren," Reed said, shaking the older man's hand firmly. "Incredible turnout." "It has to be," Wren muttered, leaning in close. "The lease renewal on the distribution centers is due Monday. The landlords have been ghosting my legal team for weeks. I need this merger to show them we're stable. Strong." Reed suppressed a smirk. If only Wren knew his landlord was supposedly Reed's ex-wife. The thought was laughable. "Don't worry, Wren. Once I'm CEO, I'll handle the landlords. I know how to negotiate with difficult people." "Good man." Wren slapped his back, but his gaze drifted past Reed to a young man with messy hair holding a complex camera rig. "That's Wilder. Go say hello. Make sure he gets your good side." Reed navigated through the crowd, accepting congratulations and envious stares. He found Jackson Wilder near the champagne fountain, talking to a camera lens as if it were a person. "So we're here at the Whitmore estate, and guys, the smell of money is thicker than the humidity," Jackson was saying, his voice high energy. "Rumor has it, Spencer Dynamics is merging tonight. But the real tea? The groom-to-be just dumped his starter wife for the heiress. Classic moves, right? Let's see if he's as charming as the press release says." Reed stepped into the frame, flashing his best media smile. "Jackson, welcome. Hope the hospitality is up to your standards." Jackson lowered the camera slightly, grinning. "Reed Dalton, the man of the hour. Just telling my subs about your big night. 25,000 live viewers right now. No pressure. No pressure at all," Reed said smoothly. "The truth is easy to sell." "Is it?" Jackson asked, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "Because my chat is blowing up about a rumor. Something about a royal connection. People are saying the roads to the estate are being blocked off by diplomatic security." Reed's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "Diplomatic security? Probably for the governor. He's on the guest list." "Maybe," Jackson shrugged. "But the chat says the license plates are red." "That's not governor plates, Reed. That's sovereign plates." Before Reed could answer, a hush fell over the crowd. It started at the entrance and rippled through the garden like a cold wave. The music, a live string quartet playing Mozart, stuttered and stopped. Reed turned. The massive iron gates of the Whitmore estate, usually controlled by Wren's private security, were opening. But it wasn't the security guards opening them. It was men in dark, tactical suits. A motorcade swept into the driveway. Not limousines. These were 3 black Range Rovers with flags fluttering on the hoods. The flags bore the crest of a lion and a hawk. The lead vehicle stopped. The driver, a man with the posture of a soldier, stepped out and opened the rear door. Nicholas Kingsley stepped out first, his silver cane clicking on the cobblestones. He looked at the assembled elite of Seattle with mild disinterest. Then he turned and extended a hand into the car. A woman emerged. Reed felt the blood drain from his face. It was Vanessa. But it wasn't Vanessa. Gone was the messy bun. Her hair was styled in sleek, cascading waves. Gone was the faded cardigan. She wore a floor-length gown of emerald silk that hugged her frame and flowed like liquid water. Around her neck sat a necklace that Reed recognized from a museum catalogue, diamonds and emeralds that were heavy with history. She didn't look like a wife. She didn't look like a housekeeper. She looked like a ruler visiting a rebellious province. Is that his ex? Jackson Wilder whispered, aiming his camera directly at her. Holy shit. Chat, are you seeing this? Wren Whitmore dropped his glass. It shattered on the patio stones, the sound like a gunshot in the silence. That crest, Wren whispered, his face turning a shade of grey that matched the stones. That's the Maxwell Windsor crest. That's the landlord. Isabella grabbed Reed's arm, her nails digging into his bicep. Reed, do something. Tell them she's crashing. Throw her out. Reed, fueled by panic and the adrenaline of the public spectacle, stepped forward. He marched down the grand staircase toward the driveway, his face twisted in anger. Vanessa! Reed shouted. His voice echoed across the silent lawn. What do you think you're doing? You signed the papers. You have no business here. He reached the bottom of the stairs, intending to block her path. Two of the tactical guards stepped in front of him instantly. They didn't push him. They simply existed in his space, immovable walls of muscle. Step aside, Mr. Dalton, Nicholas Kingsley said, his voice carrying effortlessly. You are addressing Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Valoria. Maintain the appropriate distance. Duchess of what? Reed spat, trying to peer around the guards. She's Vanessa. She's a nobody from Ohio. Vanessa, stop this charade. You're making a fool of yourself in front of the entire city. Vanessa stopped. She looked at Reed. The look wasn't cold anymore. It was amused. Ohio, Vanessa said. Her voice was amplified, though Reed didn't see a microphone. I was at boarding school in Ohio, yes. It was part of my integration training, to understand how the common man lives, to understand the struggles of budgeting, of cleaning, of living without a safety net. She took a step forward, and the guards parted. She stood just 3 feet from Reed, looking down at him, though he was taller. I spent 5 years studying you, Reed, she said. My grandfather, the Duke, believed that character is only revealed when one has nothing. So I became nothing. I gave you my loyalty, my labor, and my love. I wanted to see if you would value the partner or only the prize. She gestured to the opulent party, to Isabella shivering in her red dress, to the terrified Wren Whitmore. You chose the prize, Vanessa said softly, and in doing so, you proved you are worthy of neither. Jackson Wilder was narrating frantically into his camera. Guys, are you hearing this? The poor wife was an undercover boss. But make it royal. This is insane. We're at 100,000 viewers. Hashtag Royal Revenge is trending #1 globally. Wren Whitmore finally found his legs. He scrambled down the stairs, practically tripping over his own feet. He shoved Reed aside, nearly knocking him into the fountain. Your Highness! Wren gasped, bowing so low his nose nearly touched his knees. I had no idea. We are honored, truly honored. Welcome to your property. Reed stared at Wren. Wren, what are you doing? She's my ex-wife. Shut up, you idiot, Wren hissed at Reed, sweat pouring down his face. She owns the land. She owns the distribution centers. She owns the brand rights to the Whitmore name. Wren turned back to Vanessa, wringing his hands. Your Highness, regarding the lease renewal, I trust our long-standing relationship. Our relationship, Vanessa interrupted, her voice sharp, was based on the understanding that the Whitmore Group operated with integrity. I have spent the last 5 years watching how this family operates from the inside. She turned her gaze to Isabella. Isabella shrank back, hiding behind her father. I watched your daughter mock those with less, Vanessa said. I watched her pursue a married man, not out of love, but out of a desire to acquire a corporate asset. And I watched you, Wren, encourage it because you thought it would boost your stock price. I can explain, Wren stammered. There is nothing to explain, Vanessa said. She signaled to Nicholas. Nicholas opened a leather portfolio and pulled out a document. It wasn't a lease renewal. It was a termination notice. Effective immediately, Nicholas announced, his voice booming for the guests and the live stream to hear. The Crown Estate is exercising the moral turpitude clause in the Whitmore commercial lease. All commercial operations on royal land must cease within 30 days. The brand rights to Whitmore Global are hereby revoked due to breach of conduct. Revoked? Wren screamed. You can't do that. That's bankruptcy. That's billions of dollars. You should have read the fine print, Wren, Vanessa said calmly. It's amazing what people ignore when they think they are untouchable. Reed felt the world spinning. His CEO job, the merger, his future. It was all tied to the Whitmore assets. If the assets were gone... Vanessa, wait, Reed said, his voice cracking. He stepped forward, bypassing the guards who let him pass this time, perhaps knowing he was no longer a threat. You're destroying hundreds of jobs. You're destroying my company. Spencer Dynamics needs this merger. Spencer Dynamics, a new voice boomed. Uriah Spencer, Reed's boss, stepped out of the crowd. He looked grim. He walked down the stairs and stood next to Vanessa. Uriah? Reed asked, confused. Tell her she can't do this. She can do whatever she wants, Reed, Uriah said. She's the majority shareholder of Spencer Dynamics. Her trust fund bought 51% of the stock 6 years ago. She's the one who approved your hiring. She wanted to give you a chance to prove yourself. Reed's knees finally gave out. He stumbled back, catching himself on a stone planter. You own the company? Reed whispered. You were my boss? The whole time? I was your partner, Vanessa corrected. You just treated me like a servant. Jackson Wilder's camera was inches from Reed's face now. And there it is, folks, the look of a man who realized he traded a diamond for a piece of broken glass. The internet is eating you alive, Reed. Comments are saying, Reed Dalton is the new slang for fumbling the bag. Vanessa turned away from Reed, dismissing him as if he were a bore at a party. Nicholas, she said, I find the air here stifling. I believe we have seen enough. Wait! Isabella shrieked, breaking from her trance. She ran forward, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. You can't just leave. What about us? What about the wedding? Vanessa paused. She looked at Isabella with a mixture of pity and disgust. Oh, have the wedding, Vanessa said. You two deserve each other. Just remember, when you're looking for a new venue, avoid any property owned by the estate, which in this city is most of them. She got back into the car. The door closed with a heavy, final thud. Nicholas Kingsley bowed to the stunned crowd, then got into the front seat. As the motorcade swept away, leaving silence in its wake, Reed stood alone in the center of the driveway. The live stream was still running. The guests were staring. Wren Whitmore was sobbing into his hands. And then it started to rain. The morning sun didn't bring clarity. It brought exposure. Reed Dalton woke up in his suite at the Four Seasons, but it wasn't the luxury that greeted him. It was the relentless buzzing of his phone. It had vibrated itself off the nightstand and was now rattling against the hardwood floor like a dying insect. He picked it up, his head throbbing from the scotch he'd consumed after the disastrous gala. He had 412 missed calls. Text messages were scrolling so fast he couldn't read them. But the notifications that made his blood run cold were from YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Hashtag The Royal Fumble was trending worldwide. Reed opened the YouTube app. The first video on his recommended feed was titled, CEO Wannabe Humiliated by Secret Princess Wife. Full live stream. It had 14 million views in 8 hours. He clicked it. He watched himself on the tiny screen, shouting at Vanessa, looking red-faced and petty. He watched Nicholas Kingsley shut him down with effortless elegance. He watched Uriah Spencer fire him in front of the world. Reed threw the phone across the room. It shattered against the wall, but the silence didn't return. The reality was screaming at him. He dressed quickly, skipping the shower. He needed to get to Spencer Dynamics. He needed to talk to Uriah. Surely, after 10 years of service, Uriah wouldn't throw him away over a personal dispute. It was a wrongful termination suit waiting to happen. When Reed arrived at the Spencer Tower, his security badge didn't work. The little light on the turnstile flashed an angry red. "Error," Reed muttered, swiping again. "Come on." "It's not an error, Mr. Dalton." Reed looked up. The head of building security, a man named Miller, who Reed had never bothered to learn the first name of, was standing there with a cardboard box. "Miller," Reed said, forcing a smile. "System's glitching. Can you buzz me in? I have a meeting with Uriah." "Mr. Spencer is not taking your calls," Miller said, his voice devoid of sympathy. He shoved the box into Reed's chest. "Your personal effects. We cleared your desk this morning." Reed stared at the box. It held a framed photo of him and Isabella, a stapler, and his Mont Blanc pen. "You can't do this!" Reed snapped, his voice rising. "I am the VP of Operations. I have rights. I'm going up there." He tried to push past the turnstile. Miller didn't move, but 2 uniformed guards stepped up behind him. "You're trespassing, sir," Miller said. "And frankly, with the press outside, I wouldn't make a scene. They're looking for blood." Reed turned and looked through the glass revolving doors. A swarm of paparazzi and freelance streamers were camped on the sidewalk. They were waiting for the man who fumbled the bag. "Uriah said I'm banned?" Reed asked, his voice trembling. "Mister, Spencer said that Spencer Dynamics cannot employ anyone with a demonstrated lack of character judgment," Miller recited. He also mentioned that the majority shareholder, that would be your ex-wife, has a zero-tolerance policy for employees who abuse their spouses, publicly or privately. Reed felt the bile rise in his throat. It wasn't just a firing, it was an execution. He took the box and walked out the side exit, avoiding the main press pack. But he couldn't avoid the internet. Every time he passed someone on the street, he saw the recognition in their eyes, the whispers, the stifled laughter. He ducked into a coffee shop, pulling his collar up. He ordered a black coffee, reaching for his platinum credit card. "Declined," the barista said flatly. "Try it again," Reed hissed. "It has a $50,000 limit." It says, "Card reported stolen/frozen by primary account holder," the barista read. Reed froze. The joint account. He had never separated his finances because he assumed he would be the one dictating the terms. Vanessa had frozen him out. "Do you have cash?" the barista asked, looking at the line forming behind him. Reed patted his pockets. He had nothing. He left the coffee on the counter and walked out into the rain, the cardboard box dampening in his arms. He was a millionaire on paper, but in practice, he was destitute. If Reed's fall was rapid, the Whitmore collapse was catastrophic. Reed took a taxi to the Whitmore estate, paying the driver with his expensive watch because he had no cash. He needed to regroup with Isabella. They were in this together. If they married quickly, they could spin the narrative. Romeo and Juliet against the crown. But when he arrived at the estate, the gates were open, and moving trucks were already lining the driveway. He ran into the main hall. The house was in chaos. Staff were packing crates. Art was being taken off the walls. "Isabella!" Reed shouted. He found her in the library, throwing books into a fire. She looked deranged. Her mascara was smeared, and she was wearing a silk robe that was torn at the hem. "What are you doing?" Reed asked, horrified. Isabella spun around. Her eyes were full of hate. "Burning the ledgers before the forensic accountants get here." "What forensic accountants?" "The Crown's auditors," Isabella screamed. "Your ex-wife didn't just terminate the lease, Reed. She ordered a full audit of the last 10 years of Whitmore Global operations on royal land. They're going to find the offshore accounts. They're going to find the tax evasion. Daddy is going to prison." Reed stepped back. "I didn't know about any tax evasion." "You were the VP of operations." Isabella laughed hysterically. "You signed the merger intent. You're named as a co-conspirator in the subpoena Daddy just received." Reed felt the room spin. No, I was just the face. I didn't look at the books." "Ignorance isn't a defense, Reed," Wren Whitmore said, stumbling into the room. He looked 10 years older than he had the night before. He was holding a glass of whiskey in one hand and a revolver in the other. Reed froze. "Wren, put that down." "It's over," Wren slurred. "The stock is down 90% since the market opened. The banks have called in the loans. We're bankrupt, and it's your fault." Wren pointed the gun shakily at Reed. "You brought her into our lives. You lived with a viper for 5 years and didn't see the fangs. If you had just treated her well, if you had just stayed married to her, we would be royalty today." "Daddy, stop!" Isabella grabbed his arm. "Shooting him won't fix it. We need a scapegoat." Isabella turned to Reed, her face shifting from hysteria to cold calculation. "Reed, you're going to take the fall." "Excuse me?" "We'll say you masterminded the offshore accounts," Isabella said quickly. "We'll say you forced Daddy to sign off on them. You were the ambitious young executive. We were just the trusting family." "You're insane," Reed whispered. "I loved you. I left my wife for you." "You left her for my money," Isabella shrieked. "And now that it's gone, what use are you? You're just a broke, unemployed narcissist with a viral video record." She pulled out her phone. "I'm recording this. Get out of my house, Reed. If you ever come back, I'll tell the police you threatened us." Reed looked at the woman he had destroyed his life for. He saw the ugliness beneath the beauty. He saw the reflection of his own greed staring back at him. "You deserve this," Reed said quietly. "You deserve to be poor. Get out." Wren fired a shot into the ceiling. Reed ran. He ran out of the mansion, down the long driveway, past the moving trucks and the repossessing agents. He ran until his lungs burned and his Italian leather shoes were ruined by the mud. He was alone. He had no job, no money, no fiancé, and a potential lawsuit hanging over his head. He walked to the nearest bus stop. He sat on the bench, shivering in the damp air. An old woman was sitting there, reading a newspaper. She looked at him, then down at the paper. On the front page was a picture of Vanessa in her emerald gown, looking regal and strong. The headline read, "The Duchess returns home." "She's beautiful, isn't she?" the old woman said. Reed looked at the photo. For the first time in years, he truly looked at Vanessa. He saw the strength he had mistaken for stubbornness, the quiet dignity he had mistaken for passivity. "Yes," Reed choked out. "She is." "I heard her ex-husband was a real piece of work," the woman muttered, shaking her head. "Tried to trade a diamond for a rhinestone." Reed put his head in his hands and wept. Reed spent the next 2 weeks sleeping on a friend's couch, a friend from college who only let him stay because Reed promised to fix his car. The lawsuit from the Whitmores never materialized. They were too busy fighting federal indictments to frame him. But Reed was toxic. No one would hire him. He had one goal left: closure. He tracked the flight logs. The Royal jet was scheduled to depart from a private airfield north of Seattle that afternoon. Vanessa was leaving. Reed borrowed his friend's beat-up Honda Civic and drove to the airfield. He didn't have a plan. He just needed to see her. To say something. "I'm sorry," felt too small. "Take me back" was impossible. He arrived at the perimeter fence. The jet was there, sleek and silver, the crest gleaming on the tail. He saw a convoy of black SUVs approaching the tarmac. He ran toward the gate, waving his arms. "Vanessa! Vanessa, please!" Security guards intercepted him immediately. They tackled him into the gravel, twisting his arms behind his back. "Let him up!" The voice was calm, authoritative. The guards hesitated, then pulled Reed to his feet. Vanessa was standing by the stairs of the jet. She was wearing a cream-colored travel suit, looking every inch the modern monarch. Nicholas Kingsley stood beside her, looking at Reed with disdain. "You have 2 minutes, Mr. Dalton," Vanessa said. She didn't come closer. She stayed 10 feet away, a chasm he could never cross again. Reed stood there, dusting the gravel off his cheap borrowed clothes. He looked at her, and the words died in his throat. Reed started. "I lost everything, Vanessa. The job, the money. Isabella turned on me. I have nothing." "You have your freedom," Vanessa said. "Isn't that what you wanted? You threw the papers at me. You wanted to be free of the poor wife who held you back." "I was blind," Reed said, tears streaming down his face. "I was so obsessed with where I wanted to go. I didn't look at who I was with." Is there any chance?" "No," Vanessa said. The word wasn't angry. It was just a fact, like gravity. "Reed, I didn't hide my title to trick you. I hid it to protect myself. I wanted to be loved for Vanessa, not for the Duchess. And for a while you did love me. But somewhere along the way, you decided that love wasn't enough currency for the life you wanted to buy." "I can change," Reed pleaded. "I've learned. Look at me. I'm humbled." "You're not humbled, Reed," Vanessa said sadly. "You're just defeated. There is a difference. Humility is a choice. Defeat is a circumstance." She turned to Nicholas. "Give him the envelope." Nicholas stepped forward and handed Reed a plain white envelope. "What is this?" Reed asked. "Money." "No," Vanessa said. "I'm not giving you money. That would cripple you further. Inside is the deed to a small mechanic's shop in Ohio. It was my father's first passion project before he took the title. It's run down. It's not profitable, but it's yours." Reed stared at her. "A mechanic's shop? You want me to fix cars?" "I want you to learn the value of work," Vanessa said. "I want you to learn what it means to build something with your hands, not just take credit for others' labor. You're good with machines, Reed. You always were. Before the suits and the ambition, you liked fixing things." She started walking up the stairs to the jet. "Vanessa!" Reed called out one last time. "Did you ever really love me?" She paused at the top of the stairs, looking back at him. The wind caught her hair. "I loved the man I thought you could be," she said. "But that man never showed up." She disappeared into the cabin. The door sealed shut. The engines roared to life, blowing dust and debris over Reed. He stood there, clutching the envelope, watching the jet climb higher and higher into the gray Seattle sky until it was just a speck. And then, nothing. The shop was small, smelling of oil and old tires. It was located in a forgotten corner of Dayton, Ohio. Reed Dalton wiped the grease from his hands with a rag. He wore blue coveralls with the name Reed stitched on the pocket. He had a beard now, neatly trimmed. He looked tired, but the frantic hunger was gone from his eyes. "Hey, Reed," a customer called out. "Is the transmission done?" "Almost," Reed yelled back. "Give me 20 minutes. I want to make sure the seal is tight." He walked into the small break room to grab a water. A small TV in the corner was playing the news. And in international news, the Duchess of Valoria announced today a new initiative to support small business owners and ethical corporate practices. She was seen attending the summit with her new fiancé, Prince Elias of Sweden. Reed stopped. He watched the screen. Vanessa was smiling, a genuine, radiant smile he hadn't seen in years. She looked happy. She looked complete. He looked down at his grease-stained hands. He looked around the small, cluttered shop. It wasn't a penthouse. It wasn't a corner office. But it was honest. He turned off the TV. "Reed!" the customer shouted again. "Coming," Reed said. He walked back out to the garage, picked up his wrench and got back to work. He had a long way to go, and for the first time in his life, he wasn't looking for a shortcut. And that is the story of Reed Dalton, a man who held a diamond in his hand and mistook it for a rock, simply because he forgot how to see the light. It's a harsh lesson, isn't it? We live in a world that tells us to chase the upgrades, the better car, the bigger house, the trophy partner. But the tragedy of Reed wasn't that he was ambitious. It was that he defined his worth by what he could get, rather than what he could give. Vanessa tested him not with cruelty, but with simplicity. And he failed because he couldn't find value in the simple things. What do you think? Did Reed deserve the mechanic shop? Or should Vanessa have left him with absolutely nothing? And would you have passed the poor partner test? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of royal revenge and karma, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story. Until next time, remember, the grass isn't greener on the other side. It's greener where you water it.